Hello, namaste, day number 83. Today I want to talk about mental health on the spiritual path and working with thoughts at different levels of awareness. Nice little cat hair there. When we're first awakening, one of the real teachings and helpful movements is to let go of identification with thought. Don't believe your thoughts. Know you're not the mind. And this is very helpful because when we're first awakening, most often for most everybody, there is tons of chaos, tons of just crazy thoughts. The mind is totally in a panic and overwhelmed by, for me, it was kundalini energy. It's overwhelmed by all the belief systems falling away, and it just is, the mind is throwing its tantrum. It's really fighting and resisting the awakening. Because the mind is a survival machine. It's an innocent survival machine, and it thinks that through awakening out of identification with the mind that we're just gonna die or something. And there is truth in everything the mind says. Aspects of our self do die. They do fall away. The kundalini energy, the spiritual energy does annihilate certain identities that we mistakenly thought ourselves to be. So it's not like the mind is just coming up with this out of thin air. But the mind thinks that, that this whole awakening process is just really bad. It just is really scared of it, and it can flare up and have all kinds of crazy reactions. And then you're gonna have all the kinds of crazy thoughts. And like for me, when I was heading into psychosis and was temporarily in a state of psychosis, it was so crucial for me to not believe my thoughts, because my thoughts at that point were it was not a pretty picture. And if you're going through a really dark night of the soul, if you're having a lot of terror and fear coming up, same thing. In that place, you really don't want to believe your thoughts. But after some time on the path, the mind finally starts to surrender to the energy. The mind starts to get on board with this process of awakening. It starts to trust the energy, it starts to trust the process. And the mind essentially starts becoming repurposed as an assistant to divine will or your higher self or to the kundalini energy. And so as the mind gets repurposed as an assistant, as the mind kind of stops with its constant tantrums and paranoia and just overall really terror. The mind is just scared of this. As the mind starts to surrender and starts to trust this process more, and as your mind momentum really reduces, it's the thought space can become a lot more peaceful. And now we can work with thoughts and the thought space in a different way. And this is what I've learned yesterday. It really, I had this deep realization, and then this morning it just crystallized. And here's the realization. When you meditate for long periods every single day, and what tends to happen is your mind and your body, and I talked about this in the comment section with Jordy, is your mind and your body start to become like one unit. There's not as much of a distinction. It's like the mind-body connection just becomes so melded together, so interwoven, that it's just like oneness, right? And so your body and your mind are communicating very, symbiotically, and there's not as much of a separation. So what this means is, you can, when you start having flare-ups of dark thoughts, I have two concrete examples. I know the examples, my personal examples, really help with the explanations. When I was doing the radio show and I was having such bad feelings about it, I was getting lots of dark thoughts. This is 2 days before I decided to let go of it. I felt myself feeling cut off from from my heart and just the openness within, like I've talked about in a meditation video. And I was having dark thoughts, and I'd ask my mind, what's wrong, mind? What's going on? And the mind would be like screaming at me, quit the radio show, don't do the radio show. And I mistakenly identified that as an old fear pattern. I was like, oh, you're just scared of this opportunity, right? But I didn't quite have the awareness to know in that moment that, oh, my mind, that actually isn't a fear pattern. That's just my mind communicating wisdom to me. And on this path, it's so crucial to know where you're at. It's crucial to have an awareness of like how aware you are, or an awareness of your level of consciousness. So if you have an awareness that you're in the beginning of this and it's just rough waters and tons of darkness coming up and terror, and sometimes you feel like you're going crazy and you're on the edge of psychosis, well, you know that right now it's time to let go of the mind completely. Don't believe any of the thoughts. Totally disidentify from anything it's telling you, and just really come into your breath, come into your body, come into your senses and where you are in the physical 3D reality, right? But after some time, and I was thinking about this, it's like after you meditate for however 2 hours or more a day, have been going through the awakening for a while, and your mind has really started to integrate into this process, if you have a flare-up of dark thoughts, it's a lot of times, first of all, don't believe the dark thoughts, but ask the dark thoughts. Like I was having the dark thoughts, and then I asked the dark thoughts, why is it so dark up there? What's going on? And then they said, quit. Every time I'd ask, quit the show. So if you're having dark thoughts, yes, still don't believe the dark thoughts, of course, but you can go to your mind space because now you know your mind isn't in that place, that fragile place anymore. You know that your mind is in a more peaceful place. So when it flares up, it's really the intelligence of your whole unit, your whole body, your whole energy field, emotional body, mental body. It's really everything that's trying to communicate to you. It's not just a programmed fear-based pattern or old story, right? And that can still happen. But if it's like really direct and like that was for me, then it's something to listen to. And so finally, after a couple days of this, of just asking the darkness, like, what do you want? And it's saying, quit the radio show. I felt in my body what letting go of the radio show would be like. And it was just such relief and peace. And I felt in that moment, alignment come back. And I was like, oh, this actually wasn't a fear pattern. And I was like, I'm sorry for not listening to intelligence of whatever my being, I guess you could say. And so then I let go of the radio show, and dark thoughts were gone. Serenity and tranquility slowly returned. And I learned from that example, like, oh, now that I've integrated the mind so much into this process, and I'm feeling so much oneness with the body, the mind, the energetic subtle body, the emotional body, even the ethereal body, everything, I can kind of trust what's coming through, and I don't always have to just say, oh, that's a fear pattern or something. And the second example, this is one I really want to share, was last night. I was doing yoga and I was meditating a lot yesterday, and I was in a really high place vibrationally, but I was having these darker thoughts, and I was like, what the fuck, I feel great, but there's darkness in the thought space again. And so, because I had learned from the example of the radio show, I can kind of trust what I received from this thought space, I asked the darkness in the mind. I was like, all right, what's going on now? And I just remember that, like, the darkness was like, you're neglecting us. You're neglecting the mind. We want to work. Like, we need something. You need to help us, like, you need to connect us with our purpose. You've neglected the mind, basically, in this process of meditation and yoga and everything. And it's just like early in this process, how I really was neglecting my body, and I wasn't working out, and I wasn't doing exercise. I realized, holy shit, I've been neglecting. And I asked my mind, I was like, what do you mean? What do you need then? Like, what do you want? And the mind was like, write. Why have you stopped writing? The mind was telling me, we're bothering, we're trying to get your attention to tell you to, like, we need that, we need to write, we need that purpose again. And it's like this energy, I was in this really high state. It's like this energy, I wasn't letting it express through me with one of my gifts. And so it was just getting stuck up, and it was just trying to, like, hey, you're a conduit, right? We're here to, like, express through you. Like, this energy, if it could talk, that's what it was telling me. And my mind was trying to say, hey, this energy wants to express through you. And the mind still has a role here. Because I know in meditation, the whole point is to be free of mind, right? Free of time and space, to connect to your pure awareness. And then same thing in yoga. And then I sit down here in front of you guys, and it's still very little mind. I'm just letting information flow through me. I'm not planning, less and less over these 82 days. I don't plan it out. I might have one kernel maybe sometimes. And I just kind of trust the moment, and I just let it come through. Not much mind activity, right? Or something for the mind. But the thing with writing is, yes, I still am a conduit, and I let it flow through. But it's like the mind gets to then go build the blog out. The mind gets to structure it and organize it. It gets to put together the email. It gets to do all of these, like, tasks, I guess you could say, that really give it a sense of well-being and accomplishment and, like, psychological health, mental well-being. And this is something on the spiritual path, like I was saying earlier, it's important to have an awareness of your level of consciousness. Because at a certain level of consciousness, if you're Eckhart Tolle on a park bench, who cares about trying to, like, keep the psychological well-being of the mind intact, right? You're just enlightened, sitting there in this, like, basically permanent state of peace and enlightenment. Or if you're like a yogi in a cave, just sitting there in the darkness, well, yeah, you probably are at such a level of consciousness you don't need to factor these things in. But I know I have an awareness of my own level of consciousness, and I know my psychological well-being and health is so important for me to balance. And I'm not in a place where I can just let go of, letting the mind have its balance, I guess. It's like a balance. Like, the mind was kind of flaring up and getting a little bit angry with me and irritated with me. Like, come on, man, you forgot about me. Don't you know that I love to do the work with the blog, and I love to organize things? And it's like, I kind of went way too far, I guess you could say, to the right brain is the creative side. I hope I got that right. And it's like the left side is like, hey, we're still here. And we still need a little something, man. And it's like, through a kundalini awakening process or a spiritual awakening process, for so long, our like logical mind is, like, turned off. Our ability to process. Like, I couldn't read or write for months. I couldn't process information. There was too much of a nervous system rewiring going on. So I just let go of books. And it was so important to me before. Like, my intellect was everything to me. So I had to let go of everything dealing with, like, that side of the mind. And what happened is, like, the mind is trying to tell me, like, hey, okay, you've gone through a lot of rewiring and integrating, and you have access to this again. And you know how fulfilling and satisfying it is when you accomplish building something. Because a blog is, like, truly building something from scratch. It's a really beautiful process. Or like building a website or a newsletter. A little different than this, where I just get on here and I just flow, And so it gives that part of my mind some real health, I guess, some real responsibility or something, so that it can be a little bit more silent, be a little bit more tranquil. So it can, like, you're almost like, allowing that part of yourself to express and allowing the mind to have its natural movement and knowing what your mind needs. Everyone's mind is different. Some people need more of that. Some people need less. And I tried to go all the way to the opposite side. And for me, I'm realizing, I need that still. I need that to feel in harmony, in balance with everything. And so last night and this morning, I just started writing, and there it was. I was like, this is what you needed. And I could just feel how my mind was in such a like such a deep peace while I was writing, such a flow state. And I could see my handwriting start changing the longer I wrote. It started just getting so much more, I guess you could call it like just beautiful. You know, the handwriting just started looking really nice. And at the beginning, it was kind of frenetic and all over the place. I'm sure you guys have experienced this. But by the end, I was just in this nice flow state with writing. I came to a bunch of realizations about myself. And so the big point I'm trying to make here is when you're having lots of dark thoughts and you've been on the path for a while, and it's something that, you know, maybe you haven't experienced in a while, ask your dark thoughts, hey, what's up? What's going on? What do you need, you know? And these last 2 times, I've listened to them, and it's been beautiful. It's really helped. And so don't underestimate how aware you are. It's not always a fear programming I'm learning with the mind. Sometimes the mind is communicating in the intelligence of your body and your heart. Sometimes that's the only way your body and your heart can get a hold of you, is to shoot up some darkness, like some noise, you know, hey, let's make it noisy up there. Get this being's awareness, like, hey, we need some balance. Like, we need you to think about, you know, taking care of this part of this aspect of yourself that just wants to express and is actually really needed and really valuable. And I'm realizing today how much I love writing and how valuable or how much service I can offer through writing. And it is a different thing because it takes more time, more concentration, more focus, more organization, more structuring. And it's a beautiful process. And I do have to rely on different aspects of my mind to do it. And those aspects of my mind showed up today, and they were I could just feel it. I could just feel that part of me being like, yes, he listened, thank you. And now I'm experiencing balance in my being and in my thought space. The darkness fell away. And so I'm just going to try to keep with that balance and start writing more. And yeah, I'm excited for this discovery for myself. And I hope what I discovered today about my thought space helps you guys with your own relationship with your mind and your body. Because as we keep evolving, it really becomes like one thing. At the beginning, it feels so separate. And I know... and that it's a different stage. But after some time, it's just oneness, and it's all communicating for your benefit, trying to like, hey, get your attention. Like, come on. We need balance. So 83 to 83, don't forget about your mind. Love your mind, all parts of it. And yeah, I love you guys. Namaste.